Welcome back, everyone. What we're going to do right now is talk about proposals. So we're going to talk about proposals in general, the important components about the proposal, and then we're going to talk about the proposals you have to write for this class. So to start off, let's talk about the different kinds of proposals you might write in the academic world. The first kind of proposal, obviously related to this class, is a proposal for a student project. So in this case, you're writing a proposal for a particular essay or a project that you're going to do that's limited to one course. But as you move on, you might write a proposal for an undergraduate thesis, a master's thesis, or even a PhD dissertation. All of those are different kinds of proposals that you will write. You may also write proposals that are connected to applications for graduate school if you decide to go to graduate school. You're also going to write proposals possibly for funding. Now, in the academic world, funding is extremely important. The more you move away from the humanities, the more important it is. So in the humanities, funding is still important because it enables you to do particular projects. If you're a student, say a graduate student, it gives you money to live, and that is also important. But if you move on to social sciences and the sciences, the money just doesn't allow you an opportunity to hire people to work with you or to have money to be extra money to buy things. It actually enables your project. So in the social sciences, you may need money to set things up, to have equipment, to pay people that you are interviewing, for example. And in the sciences, it may be about equipment or acquiring raw materials that you're going to look at. So all of that is important. So funding applications are extremely important. And in funding applications, often you have to write a proposal for the project you want funding for. It's not just for you as an individual because you're so great, it's for a particular project. And by far the most frequent kind of proposal you will write is a response to a CFP. And CFP stands for Call for Papers. The call for papers are usually for either for a journal or an anthology that wants chapters, or it's for a conference. So there's far more conferences than special issues of journals or anthologies. But if you are an academic, especially if you're going on in the humanities or the social sciences, there will be lots of opportunities for you to write those kinds of proposals. So no matter which kind of proposal you are writing, you have to think about the audience. So that is vitally important for each kind of thing that you're doing. So how do you figure out the audience for these kinds of proposals? Well, if you're writing a student project, it's a lot easier to figure out who your audience is because the audience is right in front of you. If you are writing a proposal for an individual course, your audience is essentially the prof of that course or the instructor. So you know what that person, at least have some idea of what that person wants, and you can ask them questions. Once you move on to grad school and you're doing proposals for a thesis or a dissertation, you still have some sense of who's in the department and who is on your committee and what they are looking for. And depending on the department or your individual committee and who's on it, you can get early feedback on what they are looking for in terms of a proposal. When you're doing applications for grad school, it's not a bad idea to call up the department and ask them what exactly they're looking for in their proposal. For the funding and the CFPs, it's a little bit more difficult because you don't always have direct access to those people. So what you need to do is to be able to read the requirements for those applications or for those proposals and get a sense of who that audience is and what they're looking for. Regardless of what kind of proposal you are writing, there are some components that are present in all of them. And I'm going to go through some of them now. So first, there's the attention getter. And of all the components of a proposal, this is the least important. The attention getter is usually a sentence at the beginning, or a sentence or two at the beginning, that is designed to make somebody really interested in your project and want to keep reading your proposal from the get-go. That being said, even if you have a terrible, terrible attention getter and all the other components are really, really good, your proposal has a better chance of being successful than if you have an excellent attention getter and all the other components are terrible. So that is why I would suggest that the attention getter is not something you should worry about. Think about that as the cherry on top of everything else. Focus on the other stuff. So a proposal always has a summary of existing work. And the summary of existing work is what other scholars have done on your topic that you're writing about, or topics that are similar. And this summary of existing work does two things. And the first thing it does is demonstrate that you have done your research so you know what other people have said about this topic already. It lends weight to the idea that you are on your way to becoming an expert in this topic. You know what other people have said. The other thing it does is it sets up the next component of a proposal, which is the gap, or if you were in a different Words 150 section, the knowledge deficit. It's essentially the same thing. What it is essentially establishing that nobody has done the thing that you are about to do. And that is important because otherwise you're just repeating work that has already been done. So this part of a proposal and this part of even an essay is usually very short, a couple of sentences that establish that here's what has been done. You've already established what's been done. This hasn't been done yet. That's all it is. These two sections work together. And so it's important that you establish what existing work is there through your summary, so you set up the fact that nobody has done this thing yet that you are about to do. You also have to talk about your methodology. Now, generally in a proposal, whether it's social sciences or humanities, there are certain things that you need to do in your methodology. The first thing you need to do is to link your methodology to the gap or the knowledge deficit. So in other words, what your plan is will match the gap, will help fill that gap, or will help fill that knowledge deficit. You've established nobody has done this thing yet. Nobody has figured this out. And so you have a way to figure that out. The other thing somebody's going to look for in your methodology is it feasible? And all that really means is, can you actually do what you're proposing to do? It's not unusual for new academics or even older academics to propose a project that is just too big and just unreasonable in terms of being able to get it done. So you want to have a project that you can actually do and that you can show somebody that you can actually do. That's going to be important for this class, and we'll talk about that later. And the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is the value. So establishing that nobody has done something doesn't mean that somebody should pay you to do it. Think of it this way. You have in a funding application or a response to a CFP, you are not the only one writing a proposal. There are hundreds, sometimes thousands of other people writing proposals to get the same thing, and you are in competition with them. So all of them, if they have any sort of academic training at all, are going to do their summary of existing work and establish that what they have planned to do, no one else has done. And as long as their methodology is good, they're on equal standing with everyone else. What is going to make one project stand out more than another is value. The problem with establishing value is that it is subjective. What is valuable and what is not universal. It's not standard across everything. So when you look at funding proposals, when you look at a CFP, you don't just look at what the minimum qualifications are. You look for hints at what those people are going to find valuable. And then you find a way to link your project to what they find valuable. So what we're going to do right now is look at two CFPs and one funding proposal that give you hints at what can be valuable, and we'll talk about how you might link your project to the value that those organizations or those people see. Okay, so the first CFP we're going to look at is from the Celebrity Studies Journal. That's the same journal that published the article written by Graham Turner. Now, the deadline for this special issue has already passed, but it is fairly recent, and it is a special issue on Hugh Grant. So they are looking for articles on Hugh Grant. So as you can see, the call for papers is quite long. The first 3 paragraphs talk about the career of Hugh Grant and why he is an important celebrity that is worth studying. So what that means is you already know that you don't have to defend or try and suggest that Hugh Grant is worth studying. They've already done that. They've established that they know that. So that's not something you need to spend a lot of time in your proposal for. Down here, they give you a little bit more information. Whereas Grant's work has been explored with regards to the intersection of national identity and masculinity in contemporary transatlantic romantic comedy, little academic work has been conducted on his star image. We thus seek original essays that explore Grant's stardom through an interdisciplinary approach with a focus on self-production and reception of his persona across media for a special issue. So in other words, there's work done on this already. That gives you 2 hints. They're not looking for this kind of stuff. And if you're looking for a summary of existing work, this is the kind of thing you need to look for. For this, if you were to propose a paper for this journal, this special issue, you would probably have to not only look at stuff about Hugh Grant, you'd have to look at stuff about celebrity studies in general, given the particular approach that you want. They've also established what they're interested in here, and that is looking at Hugh Grant's persona and how it's developed and how people react to it, rather than close reading the films he's in. What you have here is a list of topics that are related to Hugh Grant that they might be interested in, that they're hoping to get articles or proposals on. So if you're thinking of a proposal or you have a project in mind, look through this list and see if your project relates to any one of these things. And if it does, make sure to emphasize that fact, because these kinds of lists are a way for the person who's asking for the papers to tell you what's valuable to them. So these are the kinds of things that are valuable. So if you propose a project that not only fills a knowledge gap that exists, but is somehow able to address one of these topics, that is a thing that will have, that is a kind of proposal that will have value to the people who are asking for proposals. So this is another call for papers, and this is for a conference. The conference is Confronting Political Divides, and it is part of a larger conference that you can see here, the Congress of Humanities and Social Sciences. So that is a conference in Canada in which a lot of humanities and social sciences disciplines from across the country get together. Happens once a year, happened in Vancouver not that long ago. So people come from all over. Also, sometimes people come from the States and other countries, and they present papers to each other. A lot of different departments are there. This is a particular focus of this organization that piggybacks on that larger conference. So Confronting Political Divides is here. They give a brief description up at the top. I'm going to start here. This year's theme is Confronting Political Divides. The challenge of political division is both multiple and intersecting in a variety of complex ways. Contemporary politics are defined by divisions of race, colonialism, gender, nationality, religion, and class. While these divisions are by no means new, the way in which these challenges manifest and develop continues to change alongside shifts in technology, ecology, economics, and political discourse. The discipline of political science is central in understanding and responding to these challenges, and in so doing plays a central role in assessing the possibilities for confronting political divides as well as the costs and benefits that come with these efforts. So that is quite a broad topic that they're dealing with. Political divides, they list a number of different kinds of political divides and then list a number of ways that those political divides might have changed. For example, changes in technology. They don't explicitly mention this, but social media would be one way that technology has enhanced or changed the way those political divides relate. The next paragraph talks about how this particular theme of this conference within the larger conference relates to the theme of the larger conference. Theme of the larger conference is Bridging Divides, Confronting Colonialism and Anti-Black Racism. This paragraph then outlines some of what that means. The focus is particularly on African Canadians and on Indigenous people, and how particular kinds of divides within Canada affect those populations. And then at the very end of this long description, panels and papers addressing these and related issues are particularly welcome. In other words, they are looking for papers on all kinds of political divides, but they are especially looking for papers on African Canadians and Indigenous people, and how those groups of people are connected to those political divides. So we have an idea of what's important to them and the different levels of importance. If you're writing a paper that is specifically related to celebrity studies and celebrities, you need to spend a lot of time emphasizing the connection to political divides, and likely pick out one or two of the things on this list here, or even more ideally, this paragraph here, that relate to what you're going to talk about in terms of celebrity. If it is too much, if you can't figure out how to do that, this might not be the conference for you. But if you can, if there is a legitimate connection between the project you have in mind and these themes, emphasize that connection as part of the value. Don't just establish that nobody has looked at this particular celebrity in relation to how they deal with a political divide. Emphasize that examining that celebrity and how they've dealt with it helps you understand the broader context of that political divide and how celebrity culture influences that political divide. So the last thing I want to look at right now is more of a funding opportunity. And this is from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. That is the national council in Canada that gives out a lot of funding for research in social sciences and humanities. They give out funding to master's students, to PhD students. They give out postdocs to people who have finished their PhD. And they also give out funding to more seasoned academics. So because this applies to all social sciences and humanities programs, it's difficult to narrow down particular topics because there's a wide variety of topics. But let's look at exactly how they narrow things down. So the goal more generally of the Insight program, and that's the program that gives this funding. The Insight program, by the way, is usually for more established academics. The Insight program is to build knowledge and understanding about people, societies, and the world by supporting research excellence in all subject areas eligible for SSHRC funding. So that seems super broad. Pretty much any project you can propose helps build knowledge and understanding about people, societies, and the world. But if you are proposing a project that looks at a particular celebrity or a particular groups of celebrities and how they use social media, you are not just dealing with either a journal who's looking at celebrity studies, who already see the advantage of studying celebrities, and you're not dealing with a political science conference that more generally, if you work hard, you can make the connection between your celebrity that you're examining and a political divide. You have to work extra hard because there's going to be skepticism. Why does looking at this celebrity help you do these things? You can draw on what other celebrity studies scholars have already said about the value of looking at celebrities. You will have to reiterate that because your audience now is not as clear. This is a government document that's not necessarily written by the people who are actually going to be evaluating your proposal. The people who evaluate your proposal in these kinds of grants are generally volunteers who have very different ideas. So you have to plan for the fact that people are going to be skeptical about your area of research. The context helps narrow things down a little bit in terms of what is of value. Research and training in the social sciences and humanities provide the foundation for a vibrant, healthy, and prosperous society. They advance knowledge and build understanding about individuals, groups, and societies. What we think, how we live, and how we interact with each other and the world around us. Okay, so this narrows things down a little bit more. What we think, how we live, and how we interact with each other. So if somehow you can relate the project that you're looking at in terms of celebrities to those general things, that will help you establish the value of your project. But it goes on even further. Such research enhances our knowledge and understanding of the past and present and informs our thinking about critical social, cultural, economic, technological, and environmental issues, both within the research community and across the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. So the key here is enhances our knowledge and understanding of past and present, and informs our thinking about critical social, cultural, economic, technological, and environmental issues. So if you can say, my study of this celebrity is directly related to a critical cultural issue or a critical environmental issue, because the way this celebrity talks about the environment influences the way people think and interact about the environment, that helps establish the fact that your project has value. You read what they're looking for and you find a way to connect that to the project that you have. Now, I will say that there are other things that this funding application is looking for. One of them is this: provide a high quality research training experience for students. So for SSHRC applications for funding, if you are a seasoned academic, there's almost always a requirement that you are going to hire students and help train them, because part of the funding is supposed to go into training students. So that now needs to become an important component of your methodology. The other thing is, a lot of these kind of larger grant programs are not just based on your proposal. Writing a good proposal is extremely important, but they also look at your history. So the more funding you've received in the past, the more likely you are to get funding in the future. The more publications you have in the past, the more likely you are to get funding. The more well-respected you are and more cited that you are, the more likely you are to get funding in the future. So all of those things are factors, but those aren't the factors we're dealing with right now necessarily. What we're looking at is how to write the best proposal possible. And again, it comes down to looking at what the CFPs or what the call for funding applications identify as valuable to them, and figuring out a way to match your project or link your project to what they see as valuable. Okay, now that we've gone through that, let's look at the CFP I have written for you. This is my call for papers. You have to respond to it, not only with a proposal, but with a final essay. However, we're going to go through it and talk about what you need to do, not only for your proposal, but give you hints at what you need to do later for your essay. So before we get into the individual prompts, let's talk more generally about what you need to do. First thing you need to do is use 6 academic articles in your essay. 3 that you find on your own. So you can use 6 that you find on your own if you want, or you can use 3 that you find on your own and 3 that we've looked at together as a class. However that works with your particular argument or essay that you're writing. Now, for the 3 that you find on your own, or however many you find on your own, they have to do one of 2 things. First, they have to present new data that they collect through original research. Or second, they have to present an original argument about existing data. So for example, if I were to write an article on Shakespeare and Hamlet, I keep coming back to Hamlet because it just seems like an easy example. The play Hamlet is not new data. So that's not my claim there. However, I am going to present a unique and new argument about the play. And so that would qualify as an academic article for your essay. The other side of it is if you look at psychological research or sociological research that is primarily about reporting findings, and it's new findings, that would still count. So what that essentially excludes are things like book reviews or review articles that go through what other people have done and summarize it in a condensed form for you. Those articles are great to catch you up to speed in a particular field or topic, and you can still use them in addition to these 6 academic articles, but the 6 that you use have to do one of those 2 things I mentioned, either present new data or present a new argument about existing data. You will have to have a works cited list with your proposal that list all of the six academic articles. If when you start to write your actual essay, you decide to drop one of those articles and add another one, that is totally fine. You don't need to do anything extra, but you have to have at least 6 to start with when you submit the proposal. Focus is important. So earlier I mentioned about methodology. When people are looking at the methodology, they want to make sure it's feasible. Focus is going to help you have a feasible methodology. What do I mean by that? Some of the prompts are very, very broad. And so some of you might be tempted to take a very broad view. The problem with that is that it requires a lot of research, and then you have to take all that research and somehow write it in an essay. And if you try to do something like celebrity culture in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, and that is your topic, that is a lot. That is far too much. That's a book or even a series of books, not an essay for a first-year class. So my recommendation through almost all of these prompts, no matter which one you take, there's one that's an exception, we'll talk about that in a minute, is to focus on a particular example. So that could be one single celebrity, or it could be one event even that involves a celebrity. That is like a very narrow focus, but you use that focus to talk about some broader issues. In the same way, say Nunn and Breezy focus on Jade Goody as a particular example to talk about something broader. They use many more examples in their article, but Jade Goody is the one they keep coming back to. So that is one particular example that helps them talk about a broader issue. That is one way to focus your essay, and that is probably the best way of focusing your essay for this course. Because if you try to do too much, you're going to get overwhelmed. So with all apologies to Graham Turner, you are not going to be able to go out and do sociological or psychological surveys of audience members in relation to particular celebrities or particular celebrity events. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. The one is the fact that for the most part, we're supposed to do social distancing still. But it's more than that. In order to do human research or research with humans, there are a whole bunch of ethical guidelines you have to pass, and you have to submit proposals for approval from university boards, and we are not doing any of that. So you can't do it either. So with all apologies to Graham Turner, we're not in the place where we're necessarily going to do the kind of research he's calling for. Instead, we're going to look at specific texts, and texts is a broad term here. Text is anything that exists that you can analyze. So a text could include a television interview, it could include a commercial that you see on TV, and it can include social media posts. All of those are considered texts. So you can analyze those things, and that's great. What you can't do is actually go out and do interviews with real people and use that as part of your research. All right, let's look at the prompts. We'll go through one by one. I'll help you, again, try and identify what the value is that's being hinted at here, and also some ways you might answer. So number one, Amanda Hess has argued that the relationship between celebrities and their audiences has changed since the outbreak of COVID-19 forced much of the world to stay inside and threatened the income and safety of many. We welcome papers that draw on existing theories about celebrity culture to discuss the way that the pandemic has either changed celebrity culture or the way celebrity culture under the pandemic is largely the same. So you'll notice I have the we welcome part, and that is just my attempt to make the language in these prompts more like the language of a call for paper that you might have for a panel at a conference, and so that you get practice responding to those. So what this is asking is, how is it changed or how is it the same? And so you'd pick one or the other for the most part and focus on that. But even further, to focus your answer to this prompt would be to focus on a particular celebrity who has done a particular thing or a particular event that has happened and the reaction to it. So, for example, if you wanted to look at the celebrities singing Imagine, if you wanted to look at things that Madonna has done, those would all be a good focus. But if you try to do everything, even everything that Amanda Hess mentions in her article, it might be too much for an individual essay. Focus, a narrow focus is what is good. Second, in his 2010 article, Graham Turner calls for new approaches and methodologies in celebrity studies that could answer questions about the impact of celebrities and the celebrity phenomenon on broader cultures and the industrial components of celebrity culture. In other words, who benefits from celebrity culture and why. In the 10 years since his article was published, celebrity studies has expanded and experimented with methodologies. We welcome papers that examine the way a particular methodology used by several articles helps address one or more of the questions that Turner raises in his article. So, for this particular prompt, what you'd have to do is go out and look at other articles that have been written on celebrity studies and particularly look at their methodology and how their methodology might help answer the questions that Turner raises in his article. So in other words, you're not going to be doing the same as the rest of the prompts in which you go out and look at a particular celebrity. You're restricted to looking at the academic articles and their methodology. The other thing, the value that this prompt is looking for is new methodologies to help answer Graham Turner's questions. So you don't need to go any further than that. If your paper identifies a methodology that addresses one of the questions that Graham Turner raises in his article, that is the extent of what your value needs to be, because that is what this person is calling for. Number 3, the Me Too movement rocked celebrity culture as many celebrities began speaking out about sexual harassment and assault they have endured while in the industry, and several celebrities experienced scandal and even prosecution after being called out. We welcome papers that discuss celebrity culture in relation to the Me Too movement. We are particularly interested in papers that examine the movement or particular celebrities in the movement relate to post-feminism, and papers that discuss the way some celebrities try to rehabilitate their image in the wake of a Me Too scandal. So, in general, this prompt is asking you to talk about the Me Too movement in relation to celebrity culture. But it then clarifies 2 different ways you can do that. So those are particularly advantageous ways. As we've talked about before, when you see a CFP that says we're particularly interested in this, and you have a way to link your topic to that thing, do it. So the specific 2 areas that this prompt seems to be looking for are how does the movement or particular celebrities in the movement relate to post-feminism? And that allows you to connect it to the Evans and Riley article. And the other one is how do celebrities try to rehabilitate their image in the wake of a Me Too scandal? And that relates to Nunn and Barisi. So if you're doing the latter part, you could look at celebrities who try to rehabilitate their image and fail, or celebrities who have tried to rehabilitate their image and succeeded. Or even those celebrities who've tried to rehabilitate their image and the jury's still out on what's going to happen. So all of those are different options that you can use for that one. For the first one, it's going to be harder to talk about that until we actually read the article. So we'll put that aside for now. But again, you don't need to go much deeper than that. Look at the value here is that looking at the Me Too scandal and how celebrities try to rehabilitate their image allows you to expand that knowledge. And you can build on the kinds of things that Nunn and Barisi already say in their article about the value of looking at that. The other thing you can do on the post-feminism side is you can relate it to that article and the value, link the broader value to what the broader value is of that article. Number 4, with the increased focus on racial violence in the United States and the social unrest it has caused, many celebrities have spoken out about racial violence and the behavior of police officers, as well as the activities of protesters. We welcome papers that discuss the way celebrities speak out against racial violence and/or protests about racial violence, with a particular focus on how these moments are integrated with a larger persona of the celebrity. We're also interested in papers that examine the way celebrities who speak out are racialized by the subsequent media coverage. So the first option basically draws on some of the things we've already talked about in terms of how celebrities relate to their audiences and the effective kind of relationship they have with their audience, and how that kind of relationship and the persona that they develop relates to what they say about racial violence or protests about racial violence. The second option is more related to the paper we'll read later in the semester, in which certain celebrities are racialized in particular ways, and that becomes a filter by which media coverage understands their behavior. So one thing I'll say about this that applies to all of the prompts is that if you choose a celebrity who has very clearly taken a stand on racial issues and racial violence, there is a chance that other academics have already written about that celebrity and their stance on racial violence. And so while you are not required to have more than 6 academic articles, and you want to pick 6 academic articles that fit with your argument, if you choose to ignore multiple articles on the celebrity, on the exact topic you're writing about, that will make your essay weaker. For example, if somebody decided to write on Colin Kaepernick, there are academic articles on Colin Kaepernick. They exist. And if you ignore them and try and make a very similar argument to what is already out there, that is a dramatic weakness in your essay. You have to do that research to see what other people have said and at least use some of it in your essay. Number 5, politics in the United States has long been linked to celebrity culture. Politicians like John F. Kennedy and Barack Obama seem to become celebrities. Politicians often court celebrity endorsements and spend time interacting with entertainment celebrities, and in some cases, such as Ronald Reagan, entertainment celebrities enter the world of politics. Despite this history, many analysts and pundits have suggested that President Donald Trump has escalated and altered the relationship between politics and celebrity culture. We welcome papers that analyze the way Trump interacts with his audience in light of theories from celebrity studies. So, this prompt is asking you to speak specifically about Donald Trump and what Donald Trump does differently. Particularly how he uses celebrity strategies to interact with his audience, or how he disrupts and goes against celebrity strategies in order to interact with his audience, and what that means. What this is not asking you to do is talk about how stupid Donald Trump is, or talk about how great he is. Either one of those things. That's not what this is asking about. It's asking specifically about Donald Trump in relation to celebrity studies and celebrity theories about how someone interacts with their audience. The last article we will read deals with celebrity and politics, so that will give you something to go on. And this is another area where academics have already written about Donald Trump and politics. There's probably way too much for you to cover it all, but you should at least refer to 1 or 2 articles that deal with Donald Trump and politics and celebrity studies. And the last prompt, the majority of the articles we have read in this course have studied celebrity culture in the Western world, particularly the United States and the UK. We welcome papers that examine the way celebrity culture in other parts of the world relates to the celebrity culture closely analyzed in these articles. We are especially interested in papers that look at the way methodologies might need to be adapted or changed in order to fully examine celebrity culture in a non-Western country or region of the world. So this is one of those instances where you need to focus. And the best way to focus is not even just to look at one particular country or look at one sort of kind of celebrity in that country, but to look at one particular celebrity or one particular instance or event that deals with a celebrity. So you might choose to look at a particular scandal related to a Bollywood actor or a particular way that a K-pop star presents themselves on social media. Both of those are great focuses. And then you use the methodologies that or theories that have been talked about in the other articles and say how they apply and what might need to be changed if you were examining those particular things. But if you go too broad and talk about too many things, your essay will become watered down and you won't be able to deal with any of them closely enough in order to make a focused, clear argument about something. Again, the value here is entirely about looking at how methodologies might need to be changed if you're looking at a different culture. And so if you can establish that your paper does that using a specific example, that's all the value that you need to establish. One more thing I'm going to say, that these proposals do not necessarily lock you into doing something a particular way for your final essay. If you write a proposal and then as you do research and learn more, you come up with a different idea or a different angle, that is totally fine. You don't need to write a new proposal. The mark for this proposal is largely going to be about how well you write a proposal, not your idea. It is in your best interest, if you change your mind about what you want to write your essay about, to send me a quick email to make sure everything is okay and to get initial feedback. But even that isn't required. As long as you submit an essay that responds to one of those prompts and meets the requirements that you need to meet, that's fine. It doesn't need to match your proposal. The other thing I will say is if you come up with an idea that you're really, really excited about that doesn't quite match any of the 6 prompts that I have, you can email me and ask me if you can do this different topic. I'm going to be pretty skeptical about those emails. So if you have an idea that fits with one of those 6 prompts, go with that. If there's another idea, I'm open to it, but it will have to meet some of the other criteria. You have to have 6 academic articles, and it has to somehow relate to what we're talking about in the other articles. That can still be pretty broad, but we can go from there. All right, that is all I have for now. Have a wonderful day.
I said I can make you scared. It's kind of what I do. If you're prepared, here's what I propose to do.